Okay, Celtics postgame after a nice win over the Heat. My name is Nick Lombardo, and let's empty the notebook on a nice start to the season for the Celtics. So, in the third quarter, I think is really where the game, was kind of won and lost. And Celtics gave us a good old scare there, right? With the bad turnovers, they're kind of throwing the ball away. The Heat are getting physical. Lowry's starting to do his things where it's like a little dirty shit that he does, right? And the Celtics kind of got punched in the mouth, which didn't really happen in the 76ers game. So that definitely had me nervous there for a little bit. Um, but they put the right lineup out there. It was smart. It was Brogdon, Jalen and Jason and Horford. I think you will see some Grant lineups out there, and I almost want to call that the when everything's going to shit lineup, right? When everything's going to shit, who's going to be out there? I think it's got to be Smart. I think it's got to be the Jays. I think you'll rotate between Brogdon, Grant, and then either Horford or Rob Williams, depending on the matchup. Which is good because last year you didn't really have that. Like Grant wasn't all the way there yet. Sometimes you had White in instead of Brogdon, so it's definitely an improvement on it. But I think the biggest thing that's changed a little bit this year, and obviously it's very early, is Tatum kind of taking that last step of like, he was the guy who broke up that run there when the Heat brought it really close. And I think they were even up at one point. Tatum drives in, nice spin move with like three guys on him, throws up the floater, then hits a three, then a couple assists. Jalen hits one, and now all of a sudden everything's okay. And he did that again in the fourth quarter too when the Heat started pulling back, and then he hits a big shot, and it kind of settles everyone down. And that's kind of the last level for Tatum to hit. And as talented as he is, I think most lists still have him outside of the top five or so NBA players, which is an extremely high bar to get to, right? But that's the last level for Tatum is when everything's really going to shit. As great as Brogdon is, he's not going to be able to be the guy who really settles things down. That has to be your best player. And as good as he was, as Tatum was during that whole playoff run last year, for him to be able to score in those moments and to be able to settle the team down, that's ultimately what's going to put this team over the hump. So I was really excited to see that. On the Heat side of it, man, that team's not great. I mean, they do so much little dirty shit, right? It's like the little illegal screens, and they're swiping down on you all the time, and they're pushing you over and stuff. And it's so annoying to play against, right? Like it's the absolute worst. There's one play where Jalen lost the ball, was trying to get it back, and it was Lowry and Jimmy Butler. And Lowry's kind of boxing him out for it, and then if you watch at the end of the play, Jimmy just comes over, pushes into Jalen, pushes him over, and then just falls down on top of Jalen. And it's just like little dirty shit like that. Like that's the Heat culture or whatever, right? But man, they're an annoying team to watch because the refs give them the benefit of the doubt all the time. I think a lot of it starts with Lowry, but it's a lot of these guys too. But Lowry was all over the place today. I mean, when we started the game, he looked washed, right? And I was thinking, all right, Gabe Vincent is probably better than Lowry at this point, and he's probably going to be the guy who's going to get those minutes, at some point. But then Lowry kind of came back where he was doing his fuck around thing and pushed people over and bumped people and just kind of disrupting the game. Similar to, in a way, what Jalen did that kind of turned the finals against what Draymond did when he turned the finals for the Warriors there. Obviously, Lowry's a little bit less, he's not as physically imposing as Draymond, but still. Lowry was really bad to start the game, then the refs started giving him his, like, stupid things where he's falling over, he's throwing his hands up. There's one with Vonleh when he was running down the baseline where he just knew he had nowhere to go, so he just throws his hands up and falls out of bounds. And that's what kind of sucks about this. And obviously, the refs do as good as they can. And Van Gundy was talking about it on the broadcast too. the Heat do a really good job of forcing the refs to get the call, right? Because if you don't fall down, if you don't disrupt the play, the refs are going to let you play on. And one of the things that the Celtics do is they kind of play through that stuff a lot of the time. And Tatum does it all the time, where he'll get fouled when he's going up for a layup, but still goes up and tries to finish the layup. And the thing is, you usually don't get the call that way. You get the call that while you're going up for the layup, you throw the ball up in the air and you fall over and you force the refs to make a call. And the Heat do a really good job of that. And you kind of saw that in the third quarter and a little bit in the fourth quarter when they were able to keep the game close. But ultimately, the Heat team is still a tough team to play because they are so smart in that instance, or in those situations. But I mean, when you have one of the Martin brothers starting, you know how I feel about the Martin brothers. I mean, I just don't think they're very good NBA players. I don't think they have any real distinguishable skills. So anytime a Martin brother is starting, I'm already like, all right, this team's kind of thin. Hero is really important for their offense, but the Celtics were all around the better team tonight and the more talented team, and I think they showed that, especially with, like I said, getting punched in the mouth and coming back. That's my big picture on the game. Some of the smaller things there. We finally got some Hauser minutes. He's shooting some threes. He was doing some stuff. I like that Mazzulla put him out there when Strus was out there, when Duncan Robinson was out there, which it's kind of nice that so early in the season we got to play those guys, because then it's, you have Hauser out there to not only like, okay, you got these two guys, go guard them. They're on your same level, Sam. But it's also, look at what Duncan Robinson does and look at what Strus does, and how they get open and how they're running around and how they compensate on defense and all this stuff. So I thought that was great that they put Hauser out there and got some minutes. But man, this team is deep. I don't know how many minutes he's really going to get night to night. All around, I thought the length and the defense was really good. I thought they played a lot tougher than they did in that Miami series in the playoffs. I thought Vonleh gave him some good minutes. Like I like when Vonleh is out there because he doesn't try and overextend himself. He's not trying to do too much, but he hits a couple nice dunks that were kind of mean. And he's always in the right place. He's getting rebounds. He's hustling. Like I think Vonleh, that was like a great little pickup there for the Celtics, and we'll see if he plays at all once Rob is back. But I think it'd be nice to. I feel I trust him enough to put him out there to give Horford some rest, during some of those games. Other stuff, I mean, Grant is playing really great so far to start the season. I think he's especially good at just operating from the corner. So when all the contract stuff was going on, I was a little nervous that Grant would start trying to do more on offense, right? Like you try and initiate more of the offense or try and take some of the shots from the Jays. But it looks like what he just kind of worked on over the summer was just nailing the corner three. And he's also getting good at driving it from the corner too, which is something that he didn't really have last year, especially in the playoffs. Once he got to that Warriors series, he wasn't really able to do anything at all on offense. He's knocked down from the corner, and then he's also good at those straight line drives when he gets someone on a pump fake. So, man, I mean, Grant is becoming more and more valuable, as the season goes on. Obviously, we're early here. But if he can just be the best, stand in the corner and shoot it and drive to the basket every once in a while and play good defense, and he's switchable and all this stuff, I mean, man, I still think $15 million is a lot for Grant Williams, but he's kind of starting to become indispensable to the Celtics team. I mean, you saw with Jalen getting into foul trouble late there, they ended up just keeping Grant out there, and Jalen didn't come back in after a certain point. So he's kind of starting to become invaluable on this team. Last point on the Celtics is, one of the things that I do really like watching throughout the game is there's a lot less reliance on Marcus to create offense. And really last year, it ended up coming down to the Jays, and if the Jays couldn't do it, it was Marcus, which is fine. Marcus is a fine offensive player. He's good at moving the ball. But it's tough when you're really asking him to do a lot on the offensive end. And now with White with a little bit more confidence and Brogdon out there too, and Grant's playing better, there's a lot less reliance on Marcus to have to create offense, which I think is really nice, and it lets him kind of focus more on the defense and just kind of be that all-around leader where you're not asking him. You don't need him to take 15 shots in a night ever, which is great. Which is great. Big picture on the Celtics, how I'm feeling about them so far. I mean, they played phenomenally these first two games. I think the Miami game especially tonight really made me feel good about them. Because the Sixers, they always beat the Sixers. Like, come on, whatever. And I'm starting to develop this theory about if it was kind of good in a way for Ime to leave this team. Because before Ime left and before, all that noise came out, they were probably going to be the favorites, right? I think they were favored in Vegas, and that's probably what most people were going to come down to. For sure, Warriors, Bucks, and the Celtics were kind of a tier. And then I think when everything came out and Ime, left the team, I think a lot of people docked the Celtics down, a level, which is kind of a good thing, right? Now you don't have all that pressure on you. And you got an unproven head coach, and they can just kind of play rather than having to play as the favorites. And I think this too because, the one season where they really had a lot of expectations was coming off that bubble run, and they lost to the Heat in the conference finals. And then the next year they came out, and it was just a terrible season, man. That was a really frustrating season. And they were 500 and everyone was getting COVID and injured, and that was just not a fun team at all. And that was when everyone started, the Jays, they can't play together, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was such a young team still, too. So I think in a way it's kind of nice that a little bit of pressure has been relieved, from Ime leaving. And so now people are kind of not counting him out, but they docked him down a level, and now the guys can just play. And Jalen and Jason another year. It seems like they really took the offseason hard. I love to hear that thing about Tatum changed his diet. I just love the little shit like that. It's great. He's so mad. He got a personal chef, and he's maturing, and he's and you really saw it in this game when he was like, everyone's shitting their pants because it's the Heat, and they fuck with you, and they do these little things. And he kind of just came out and just quieted everyone down and relaxed everyone. So yeah, I really thought that was great. So my last point here, just to end it off, just a little food for thought. And they brought it up, or I thought about this because they brought it up on the broadcast. Van Gundy said, they showed the Jimmy Butler shot, in Game 7, the three that he missed towards the end. And I feel like there's been such I don't want to say revisionist history, but something to that extent about that Jimmy Butler shot. Oh, it was a terrible shot. Why would he shoot that? I think that's one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard. That shot was a great shot. And I say that as a Celtics fan sitting there watching that team and watching them kind of implode and having, I don't want to, it's not a torture history at all, because it's not. It's not at all. But, these teams that we've had such high expectations for that have kind of come up short and kind of unravel in the last moments, right? And I just remember Jimmy coming down, and I'm like, fuck, not Jimmy. Anyone. I'd rather have anyone hold the ball on that Heat team besides Jimmy Butler, because he was that fucking guy during that series. And when he pulled up from three, if you had asked if you could have paused time right there, I probably would have bet my life that shot was going in. Because that's just what it felt like all series. I mean, that's what Jimmy was doing all series, was making those giant shots. And, for him to have that shot, that's a clean shot at a three. Horford is still backpedaling. That's a great shot. And all this revisionist history of, it's a bad shot, why would Jimmy take that? You should have drived it. Fuck no. I completely disagree. I think that's ridiculous. I think that was the best shot you were going to have. Rather than try and force it into the paint, especially against Horford too, and try and make you don't want to give the refs a chance to decide the game either way. And if you're the best player on that team, and sometimes he was the best player in that series, and you have an open 3-point shot while everyone's still moving around and in transition, then that's the shot to take. And as a Celtics fan, that was a great shot. And all this revisionist history about, oh, it was a terrible shot is bullshit, in my opinion. So that's my Celtics notebook for today. Very optimistic about the start of the season. And we will be back after the next Celtics game.